Thank you. Thanks so much for having me this afternoon. I'm Joel Kearns. I'm Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration and Science Mission Directorate, which means I've got the pleasure of leading both the Exploration, Science Strategy and Integration Office and the Lunar Discovery and Exploration Program for Science Mission Directorate. I won't talk too much about what we call ESSIO, the Exploration, Science Strategy and Integration Office, but it's the counterpart to Jake Bleacher's discussion earlier on the Science Mission Directorate side, who integrates with exploration. We integrate within Science Mission Directorate, all our discipline divisions. We integrate with other organizations at NASA, like Space Tech and Space Ops, with other government agencies, and then also very closely with Exploration Systems Development Mission Directorate. I'm going to concentrate today giving you an update on Lunar Discovery and Exploration program. Go to the next chart, please. This is a what we call a fleet chart that shows major activities at the moon that are either being led by the United States or substantial U.S. Participation through the end of 2025, which, as Jake and others and Jim pointed out, is the Artemis 3 landing date. You can see these, there's two different tracks that are shown here, one for in-orbit and remote sensing activities and one for surface activities. And if you look at this, you can see that there's a mix of American activities, not only by different NASA mission directorates, but also whether these are traditional government-led activities or they are more public-private partnership or commercial activities taking place at the moon. You're sure aware that Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has been taking measurements since, I think, 2009, all the way up to this week, doing great. But you also should be aware that Space Tech's capstone position, navigation, and timing mission has been in your rectilinear halo orbit. The very similar orbit to a Gateway will be in soon, doing operations like testing link budgets with LRO, looking at position navigation and timing. And is still operating today. And also the Korean Denori spacecraft that's hosting, along with several science instruments, ASU ShadowCam instrument, has been taking imaging of the lunar surface since the very end of calendar year 22. Of course, I'm not going to say too much about the successful Artemis 1 mission that took place the end of 22, but I want to point out here that now we're going to move into the year where we have a lot of surface activities coming up through commercial lunar payload services, which are shown here on the surface in 23, 24, and 25. And you can see listed on the right the top level goals for each of those CLPS surface deliveries, which are really just a synthesis of the scientific investigation goals for the particular instruments or instrument suites that were selected to be carried to the moon on those missions. You can see here that there's a lot of activity. I thought 2022 was really kicking off being the year of the moon, but as you can see from this, is even a great deal more activity coming up in 23, 24, and 25. You go to the next chart, please. I'm not going to talk through everything on this chart, but I wanted to give you a couple of updates in different areas. For planning and strategy, I think you're going to hear later today from Sarah Noble that's going to give an update on NASA's work for the integrated lunar science strategy that's been in development since about 2021 to succeed the higher level Artemis science strategy that was published in 2020. And also you've heard several speakers talk about the development of the Moon to Mars objectives. I would ask if you go take a look at the document that outlines the development of the Moon to Mars objectives. If you go to the end of that document, you will see how the science objectives trace to the different community documents, for example, the CADL surveys for each of the science disciplines that contributed objectives to the Moon to Mars objective activity. And you will see that based on the community documents we had and also community input that we had for at those two workshops that were held in 2022, you should be able to see how those higher level objectives relate back to very specific recommendations NASA has been given in those community documents. Also want to call out from the point of view of planning that in the Origins, Worlds, and Life Decadal survey that was transmitted to NASA in April of 2022, The highest priority recommended mission for a lunar discovery and exploration program is the Endurance A mission, which is a particular implementation of South Polagan Basin sample return. And NASA will be putting together a community-led science definition team to further flesh out those objectives, science requirements, mission implementation, instrument suite, et cetera, this year. To give you an update on competitive solicitations, we're very close to making a selection on our PRISM 3 instrument suites. I want to remind you that PRISM 3 has a couple of unique aspects compared to PRISM 1 and PRISM 2. First, the proposer selected the landing site in the proposal instead of reacting to NASA's selection of a landing site. This was a recommendation both from our advisory committees and the league in the past, and we implemented this in PRISM 3. We raised the instrument suite cost cap in response to industry comments from earlier PRISM suites announcements. We also, in this announcement, offered that the CLPS provider that will eventually take the instrument suite of the moon could offer mobility as a service, so the proposer didn't have to bring their own rover or hopper or other mechanism, and also survive the night to some extent if the proposer proposed to use that. When we make the selection for PRISM 3 very soon, and that's announced, you'll also be able to see what types of CLPS capabilities were requested as part of that selection. The Artemis 3 geology team on call had all its proposals received in April and is currently being paneled. The Artemis 3 deploys instrument call comments were all received through May 17th for Artemis 3, and the call release for that will be very, very soon. We're also planning right now the details of the calls for the Lunar Terrain Vehicle instruments, and then the next PRISM, PRISM 4, and I didn't mention, of course, on this chart, but the recurring annual Dolly and periodic ANXA calls. CLPS landings for the near term, we expect 2023 to have at least 2 of the first 3 CLPS landings. Intuitive Machines CLPS lander is at the end of INT. You probably saw publicly, they announced that they're targeting a third quarter 2023 launch. The Astrobotics Peregrine 1 lander is complete. It's actually in Pittsburgh awaiting okay from United Launch Alliance to ship it to the processing facility to get ready for a launch. You probably read that United Launch Alliance is working an issue they found in qualification testing of the center upper stage for Vulcan Centaur, and they are troubleshooting that and figuring out their go-forward path. And the Astrobotics Peregrine Mission 1 spacecraft is just waiting to know when they can go to the Cape and then get ready to launch. And then after Intuitive Machines' first launch, we'll have their second launch, which will take the Space Tech Prime 1 drill and M-Solar mass spec to connecting Rich near Shackleton, probably 3 to 6 months after the IM-1 launch takes place. Wanted to show you on the upper right an update on where all the instrument developments are for PRISM 1 and PRISM 2. I won't read through them, but I will tell you that all the instrument suites that were selected in 2021 for PRISM 1 and 2022 for PRISM 2 are making great progress. The principal investigators have learned a lot, I think, going through this about what it takes to build these relatively fast and cost-capped instrument suites that'll be taken to the moon by a commercial provider. And they're all making really great progress, and it's a really exciting thing to watch. But everyone's learning quite a bit about it too. The PRISM 1, 3 instrument suites, Lunar, Vertex, FSS, and Litmus, have been assigned to particular CLPS delivery missions, and those missions have been competed by NASA, and the CLPS vendors selected. Intuitive Machines will take mission CP11 to the surface, and Draper will take mission CP12 down to Schrodinger Basin. The first one will go to Reiner Gamma, the second to Schrodinger Basin. And they're working very close with those commercial CLPS providers. The PRISM 2 instruments were selected in 2022. They're going through instrument development, but their CLPS providers have not been selected yet. So they are also a little bit earlier in their instrument suite development process for Lunar Vice and also for Leia. Leia will go to the South Pole, Lunar Vice will go to Grid Horizon Domes. So we have several CLPS deliveries that we're competing with NASA within our 14-member CLPS contractor pool. We finished one earlier this year, which is to select the vendor who will take the CLPS Science 3 mission, which is a Department of Energy, University of California, Berkeley experiment to the surface of the moon and also drop off an ESSA-COM relay into a particular lunar orbit. That was won by Firefly Aerospace. They're all working together now to get ready. The next one up that we will select will be the South Pole landing for LEA, and the one after that will be the landing for Gruithuis and Domps. We will have more instruments and payloads on those missions than just the 2 instrument suites listed. For example, you're probably aware that Masten Space Systems went into bankruptcy protection, and its assets were eventually bought by Astrobotic Technology, but that means that Masten's XL1 CLPS landing won't take place. The instruments from that landing are being remanifested on future CLPS missions, such as CP22 and CP21, as well as some instruments that couldn't, at the end, be manifested on the Astrobotics Peregrine mission, one mission that had to be removed. The Viper rover is making great progress. It's gotten through system integration review. Lunar Trailblazer is just about now entering TVAC. And I also wanted to point out that Dr. Ryan Watkins has joined NASA as a government employee in the SEO office. And you are probably have all seen iSpace make their landing attempt with Hokuto R Mission 1, which didn't seem to go successfully. And recently we posted that LRO has imaged evidence of the likely impact site of Hokuto R Mission 1. Here, the next chart, please. I want to end just with a map to show you of the upcoming CLPS deliveries. You can see here that, again, Intuitive Machines' first mission will go to Malapert A at about 80 degrees. And they have publicly described that as that they think they'll be ready to fly in third quarter 23. Astrobotic will go to Sinus Viscositatis, very near Gruithuis and Domps within the Mare region. It's listed as TBD because they are just waiting to be given the go-ahead to head to the Cape and get ready to fly with Vulcan Centaur. And I'm sure we'll find out soon what their launch date is going to be. You can see the new CS3 delivery in the upper right, several of the other previously selected deliveries. And you can see at the upper left and the lower left, although we don't know who the providers are yet, where the CP21 and the CP2 deliveries will go. I hope that gives you an update of where we are in lunar discovery and exploration at SEL. I'll be staying on to take your questions. Kelsey?
Thanks very much, Joel.